The moment that changed everything did not arrive with a shout or a scandal. It arrived quietly, on a rainy afternoon, in a glass tower where power usually spoke louder than truth. A trembling voice cut through the polished silence of the executive floor when a young girl, wearing a faded school uniform and holding a thin folder to her chest, pointed at a document on the CEO's desk and said something no one expected. The words were simple, almost fragile, but they cracked the room wide open. In that instant, a lifetime of secrets, sacrifices, and silent love rushed to the surface, and nothing in that building would ever be the same again. Before this story unfolds any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet heroes who walk among us unnoticed, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because people still believe humanity matters. The girl's name was Aisha Rahman, and she was 16 years old. She had learned early how to stand still and take up as little space as possible. Life had taught her that attention was a luxury she could not afford. Her shoes were worn thin at the heels, her backpack stitched twice at the corners, and her hands bore the faint roughness of someone who helped clean houses on weekends to afford exam fees. She was not supposed to be on the top floor of Ardent Global Holdings, one of the most powerful corporations in the city. That space belonged to executives in tailored suits, not to the daughter of a janitor. Her father, Imran Rahman, had worked in that same building for over 22 years. He arrived before sunrise and left long after the lights dimmed, pushing his cleaning cart through empty corridors that echoed with ambition and indifference. Most people never learned his name. To them, he was just the janitor with the gentle nod and the tired smile. But to Aisha, he was everything. He was the man who packed her lunch every morning, who fixed her broken shoes with glue and patience, who stayed up late washing uniforms so she could sleep before exams. He was also a man who carried something heavy inside him, something he never spoke about, something that hummed beneath his silence. The day her father collapsed from exhaustion changed the rhythm of their lives. He had been working double shifts after a colleague quit, refusing overtime pay because he feared being replaced. When he did not come home that night, Aisha waited with her books untouched, staring at the door until dawn. The hospital smell clung to her clothes when she finally saw him, pale and smaller than she had ever known him to be. Doctors spoke of stress, of untreated conditions, of years of neglect. They also spoke of money, tests, medications, rest, words that felt heavier than any cleaning cart. While sorting through her father's old documents at home, looking for insurance papers or anything useful, Aisha found a thin brown envelope hidden inside a textbook with yellowed pages. Inside was a contract copy, decades old, bearing the logo of Ardent Global Holdings from its earliest days. And at the bottom of the final page was a signature. The signature was unmistakable to her. She had seen it countless times, on her school permission slips, on her notebooks when her father helped her practice writing her name. That looping, slightly slanted signature belonged to her father. The contract spoke of partnership, of initial investments, of shared vision. It was dated from a time before the glass tower, before the wealth, before Ardent became a giant. Confused and frightened, Aisha pressed her father for answers, but he turned his face away, telling her it was nothing, an old mistake, something that no longer mattered. Yet his eyes told a different story. They held regret, pride, and a quiet grief that made Aisha's chest ache. When the hospital bills arrived, thick and unforgiving, Aisha made a decision that terrified her. She would go to Ardent Global Holdings herself, not to beg, not to accuse, but to ask a question that had lived in her heart since she found that signature. After days of being turned away by security, after pleading with receptionists who barely looked up, she was finally allowed in, more out of impatience than kindness. She was escorted into a massive office where the city stretched endlessly beyond the windows. The CEO, Margaret Hale, was known for her sharp mind and iron will. She had built her reputation on strength and control, rising in a world that rewarded neither softness nor memory. When Aisha entered, Margaret barely glanced up, assuming this was another minor interruption. The folder Aisha placed on the desk looked insignificant against the polished wood, but its contents carried the weight of decades. As Margaret reviewed the document, irritation flickered across her face, quickly replaced by confusion. The contract was real. The signature at the bottom stopped her breath. Time folded in on itself as memories she had buried deep clawed their way back. She remembered a young man who once sat across from her in a cramped, rented office, sketching ideas on scrap paper, believing in a future neither of them could yet afford. She remembered promises made in hope and broken in fear. She remembered choosing survival over loyalty. That was when Aisha, voice shaking but steady enough to be heard, explained that the signature belonged to her father, the janitor who had cleaned this building for over 2 decades. She did not accuse. She did not threaten. She simply stated the truth as she knew it, and in doing so, she shattered the illusion that the past could remain silent forever. Margaret's composure cracked. The powerful CEO who had faced hostile takeovers and public scrutiny without blinking felt tears burn her eyes. She saw, with painful clarity, the cost of her ambition. When Arden was on the brink of collapse in its early days, she had forced Imran out quietly, rewriting ownership, pushing him aside with legal precision and moral cowardice. He had walked away with nothing, choosing dignity over a battle he could not win. And now, after all these years, he had returned not as a rival but as a janitor, cleaning the floors of a company he had helped build. The room felt smaller as the truth settled. Aisha stood frozen, unsure if she had done the right thing, fearing she might have cost her father his job. Margaret, for the first time in years, felt something other than control guiding her actions. She saw in Aisha the reflection of a life shaped by choices she had made long ago. What followed was not immediate redemption but a slow, painful reckoning. Margaret ordered a full internal review of Ardent's founding documents. She visited the hospital herself, standing at the foot of Imran's bed, seeing not a janitor, but a man she had wronged. Imran tried to sit up when he saw her, habit and humility ingrained too deeply to forget. Shame filled Margaret as she realized how thoroughly he had been erased from the story of the company. Legal teams were involved, records unearthed, truths confirmed. Imran's contribution was undeniable. He was not just an early partner, he had been the moral compass, the one who believed Ardent could be built without exploiting others. His ideas were embedded in the company's very foundation, though his name had been scrubbed away. As weeks passed, Aisha watched her father slowly regain strength, not just physically, but emotionally. For the first time, he allowed himself to speak of the past, of dreams deferred, of nights spent wondering what might have been. Aisha listened, understanding that her father's silence had not been weakness, but a shield to protect her from bitterness. Margaret made a decision that would ripple far beyond one family. She publicly acknowledged Imran Rahman as a co-founder of Ardent Global Holdings. She restored his equity, compensating him not just financially, but with honor. She established a foundation in his name to support the education of children from families working in overlooked jobs, recognizing the quiet labor that kept the world turning. When Imran was strong enough to return to the building, it was not to clean floors, it was to walk through the doors as a man finally say. Employees stood as he passed, many realizing for the first time the human cost behind corporate success. Aisha watched from the sidelines, tears in her eyes. As her father's story reclaimed its place in the light, life did not transform overnight into perfection. Healing rarely does. But the weight that had bent Imran's shoulders for years began to lift. Aisha no longer had to choose between school and survival. She focused on her studies with a renewed sense of purpose, inspired by the truth that courage, even when quiet, could change destinies. Margaret, too, was changed. Wealth and power no longer insulated her from reflection. She learned that leadership without conscience left a hollow victory, and that some debts, no matter how old, demanded to be paid. As this story draws close, take a moment to breathe it in. If this journey of sacrifice, truth, and redemption touched your heart, please like this video, share it, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive. And before the final moments fade, we have a special request for you. Please comment the word respect below if you believe that no honest work should ever be invisible, and that every sacrifice deserves to be remembered. In the end, this was never just a story about a signature on a page. It was about the unseen hands that build our world, the children who carry their parents' unspoken pain, and the power of truth to break even the strongest walls. It was about a janitor who never stopped believing in dignity, a daughter brave enough to speak when silence felt safer, and a CEO who learned, perhaps too late but not too late to matter, that success means nothing if it costs your soul. Long after the rain stopped that day, the city kept moving, unaware of the quiet miracle that had taken place high above its streets. But for Aisha and her father, the world had shifted. And sometimes that is enough to change everything.